presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series. Watson, touchdown. Hunter Renfrow. He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers. Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right. Greetings and a good Monday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. You can download that. It is free. You can always head to jbandgoldwatershow.com as well. Follow us on social media at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It is our text line, and you can fire us a message there. You can give us a shout. Always pop into one of the apps as well, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever, and Darren can get your comments up on our screen, and we'll fuss and discuss like we will today with Wes Mitchell and Perry Orth. Wes from Gamecock Central at 12:30, Perry Orth at 1:30, both obviously Carolina football related. And quite an eventful week it was for the Gamecocks, especially through the weekend. We'll get you onto that here in just a moment. How about the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12? Is an alliance on the horizon there? Maybe scheduling, maybe more. We'll talk about that. We had NFL preseason this weekend. The Braves are in first place. Dawn Staley nearing a new deal at the University of South Carolina. And in just a moment, we'll fuss and discuss the all-new AP Top 25 poll that has now been released. But before we go any further, good afternoon to my dear friend, Mr. Darren Goldwater.
So I got a haircut this weekend, and we know the stories of follically challenged Darren. So not only did follically challenged Darren apparently become more follically challenged with this wonderful haircut that I received from Sports Clips, she also, as she's cutting my hair, is explaining to me that she's this like mental health counselor for elementary school kids, which is great. And I'm wondering, well, why are you also cutting hair at Sports Clips? And then I realized that she like butchers the ear here. Like, right. So good thing I'm wearing headphones, but that's my Saturday. That's how the weekend started.
Well, I mean, I got mine cut too. So, yeah. We're moving it. It's the football cut is what it is.
Well, it better be growing back in cut is what it is.
Yeah. Well, you know that the old man problems set in when they cut your hair and the hair doesn't grow back.
I know.
That'll be a problem.
So that luckily around the ears, it's starting to grow back already. But we'll wait and see about this. Yeah.
Well, it looks good. You look sharp. Clint, I don't have my hat on today either. So we're geared up, fired up, and ready to go for football season. Keep in mind, this coming Saturday is the last Saturday without college football. Mm-hmm. The following Saturday, we will be watching college football, and then 2 Saturdays after, or Saturday after that, of course, the Gamecocks and the Tigers and everybody else will be playing. But before we go any further, Darren, I figure we might as well run off the AP Top 25. It is fresh. It is new. Cool. And we'll get to that, and then we'll get into Luke Doty and that situation this weekend and tell you what we know on this Monday afternoon. Bama ranked number 1. No shocker there. However, according to Brett McMurphy, and it's a good note to point out, 15 of the last 17 preseason number 1 teams voted by the AP did not win the national championship. So the odds are against them in that sense, but odds might be with them when it comes to what they're actually going to put on the field. Oklahoma is number 2 by the AP and they are one ahead of Clemson, who checks in at number 3. So a little shakeup there. Ohio State at 4, Georgia 5, A&M 6, Iowa State, Darren, the highest they've been ranked. They're at 7. Cincinnati is 8, Notre Dame is 9, and North Carolina checks in and rounds out the top 10 of the Associated Press Top 25 poll, 11 through 15 in this order: Oregon, Wisconsin, Florida, Miami, and Southern Cal. And 16 through 20 in this order: LSU, Indiana, Iowa, Penn State, Washington, and then 21 through 25 to top it off: Texas, Coastal Carolina at 22, Louisiana at 23, Utah, and Arizona State. Nothing shocking there as far as the actual names, some different spots as opposed to the coaches poll that we've seen in previous weeks or so. But what it will do, Darren, here's what it will do. This is what ESPN and others will use for their rankings when they're promoting their games coming up in week 1, which means that you'll have Bama and Miami 1-14 in week 1, and you will have 3-5 matchup, Clemson and Georgia up there in Charlotte. So there you go. Some of the early season matchups that are out there with some rankings next to them. Now we know where they stand.
It's the preseason poll, and it's the same conversation that we had last week. What's the meaning of it? What do you really take from it? And I take from it we were right. I mean, the prognosticators that we are: Alabama, Oklahoma, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State. Throw them out there. Any order you want to put them in, that's going to be your 5, and then let's see where the rest of the chips fall. But it is a good note that it's not always a sure thing. In fact, it's much more of a likely thing that number 1 does not win than it is that they do.
Yeah. It's generally that's the case. Again, as Brett McMurphy pointed out, I think I would like just for reference. Since the College Football Playoff Committee doesn't release their rankings until November, I would like them to do a preseason poll. They don't have to do one every week. Just do a preseason poll. I mean, you've got all summer, all fall to figure it out, or all of August. Drop it right before the season. Just give us an idea of what the committee is thinking before the year starts. That poll can literally mean nothing. You can erase it as soon as you see it. But just an idea, and then we'll get new rankings from them in November. What do you think about that?
Here's why I don't think they would, because they want the perception, I don't know how true it is, that when they issue their first set of rankings, that it doesn't matter what they think right now. That's the perception that they want, that it doesn't matter what we think right now. It doesn't matter what our crystal ball is telling us looking into the future. The only thing that matters when they issue that first set of rankings is what the teams have done up to that point. So if they put something out now, then they're ruining that illusion, because we all know where the teams are. It's not like these guys go into the season with absolutely no research being done and with no knowledge on these teams, right? They're right. Doing the same thing we are. They're doing their homework on these teams. So they have an idea of where they're going to fall. They want the perception of this is strictly about what we see on the field.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree. As a matter of fact, I mean, here's why I say that. If I really had a say in this, I wouldn't want to see a poll until after the first month of the season. But that's never going to happen for so many reasons, mostly financially related because you can't promote number 1 versus so-and-so in week 1 without a preseason poll. So, the polls are always going to be there. They're never going to go away. I know a lot of us have said this for years. Well, let's not rank anybody until after we've seen maybe a month of football, and then we'll have a little bit of a better grasp on this. On premise, I agree with that. But when it comes to what drives all this, which is what we've been talking about all summer, money, that'll never happen. There will always be preseason polls out, and they will always have an AP poll, and they will always use that at least until the College Football Playoff Committee releases theirs. And like we've seen over the last 6 years, that'll take over. Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. We have a top 5 matchup coming up in 3 weeks? Clemson and Georgia. Top 5. We know.
Yeah. The hype train. It's the hype train, man. Yeah, absolutely. All right, again, 843-321-8893. You can pass along any notes you'd like us to fuss and discuss, and you can be like Clint, Craig, and so many others who utilize their platforms as well, YouTube, Facebook, wherever, and pop us a note. Darren will put it into the program. Let's get to South Carolina. This weekend, obviously, news spread quickly beginning Friday night, and then it started to really come out Saturday that something was wrong with Luke Doty. The initial report was that he had a broken foot and some ligament damage. The latest reports is it's a sprain, and they're hoping to have him back by game one, if not shortly thereafter. I was on the call on Saturday afternoon with Shane Beamer once practice had commenced, and he was addressing the media, of course. Boy, was he unhappy. So let's also kind of address this. If anybody, I know that there was some criticism amongst fans because the initial reports were erroneous. Okay. Go back and look at all those reports. They were all worded the exact same way. Okay. That report came from one source, and it was a credible source, and it was massively put out. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was premature. So that's what happened. So people who were frustrated, totally get it. Have every reason to be frustrated. Just keep in mind the Gamecock Central boys and the Big Spur boys and the TV guys and those guys, they were frustrated too, because that information wasn't exactly or entirely correct. Now there were other pieces to that, medical sides of it. You know, they had to wait on swelling to go down and try to figure things out and this, that, and the other. It was certainly better than what it was initially feared to be. But Shane Beamer clearly, if you could see him on the call on Saturday, yeah, he wasn't happy. And so he addressed that immediately. I'll say this, as it pertains to Luke, they need him. They need him as quickly as they can. Luckily, it's Eastern Illinois in week 1. And then he pulled off a brilliant move in his press conference on Saturday, Darren, by announcing that Kerryon Joyner has been playing some quarterback as well. He followed that up with 97% of his time is at wide receiver. He is a wide receiver. But, he also noted we only have 4 quarterbacks here. I've been places where we have 7. So you need a guy. And then he also wanted to put other programs on alert that, hey, this is a guy you need to prepare for. Very smart coaching move, especially when you have an injury like Luke Doty's and maybe it could carry on or something else could happen. That's going to give somebody else something else to prepare for. So that was pretty smart on his side. But nonetheless, Luke's going to be out a little while, but he will be back.
I think the idea that Joyner has taken some snaps, and in Beamer's words, 97% of his snaps are at wide receiver, not quarterback. I don't think that should be shocking because we know they need to find creative ways to get him the ball. And one easy, creative way to get him the ball is some Wildcat-ish type formation where he is taking snaps. So that it doesn't shock me. And it doesn't shock me that Beamer puts this out when there's negative quarterback news. He's also putting out, oh, by the way, just remember we got this world-class athlete that's also on the team that he could have the ball in his hands as soon as that thing is snapped.
That's right.
I find it, my first reaction to the whole thing was almost feeling sorry for Gamecock fans, and I've already talked to a couple of them. I mean, look, we had JC on the show on Friday who was very comfortable in saying quarterback is not the question. Cornerback is. And that's because of how well Luke Doty had been practicing. He saw it with his own eyes and from his sources, your sources. And now all of a sudden, not only is cornerback up in the air, quarterback is up in the air because while they hope he's back week 1, we have no idea if he's back week 1. We have no idea what he's able to do prior to week 1 or prior to whenever he's able to go. And now you've got 2 guys who, if you think that Luke Doty didn't have a lot of experience, these guys don't have a lot of experience. Granted, Brown has played some NCAA ball. He played some D2 ball in a decent league, but they don't have this experience. So it's an issue right now, no doubt.
Yeah, and look, I haven't been watching practice every day. And if Shane is watching this or listening to it, which we know he checks in from time to time, I would say what I'm about to say very carefully. Luke Doty was a solid one. I'm not trying to discredit Jason Brown or Colton Gauthier, who, by the way, has had a great preseason from what I understand. But they're in order to do the things that people want them to do, which is turn it around. Don't lose it. You can't lose games this year that you're supposed to win. And right now you look at the schedule and there's probably a total of 4 of those. So you can't lose any of those games. You're going to have to win a couple of what we would call toss-up games. And if you want to have a really good turnaround year, you're going to have to win a game nobody expects you to win. That would get you to 7 wins. It'd get you over 500. Mm-hmm. It's pretty safe to say that Luke Doty is the most prepared guy to help you do that by a pretty wide margin. Now, I think we also all need to let's not try to sugarcoat it or dress it up and things like that. Let's call a spade a spade. Luke Doty, Kevin Harris, Cam Smith, 3 guys, 2 on offense. Obviously, Kevin Harris is the headliner here because of what he did last year. Mm-hmm. Cam Smith was the one sure thing at corner, or as sure as you could get, at least with this squad. And then Luke Doty for months has been considered QB1. These were all guys who were not only going to have to play, they're going to have to play incredibly well for the Gamecocks to have a turnaround year.
Yeah,
they're
like
all
anchors of the team, cornerstone well.
Yeah, like they got to be good. They're all out. Mm-hmm. So, and they've got some other injuries and things like that, some bumps and bruises, but everybody has that in camp. So are they the only team in the country that's missing a big star? Well, no, that's happening everywhere. I mean, it's happening in Georgia right now. It's Kentucky just had a quarterback leave the program. Florida, Jadon Hill was out with a torn ACL. That was their best corner. These things happen. It happened last year with Marshawn Lloyd. But in order to have a turnaround year, the Gamecock situation itself on its own little island, they got to have those guys and they got to play well. And they're not there. They're not practicing. So as they ease their way back in fully to Gamecock football, they will start to get better. Probably the one you can feel the most comfortable about of all of that is Kevin Harris. Number 1, he proved it last year. Number 2, of what surrounds him. The least amount is on his shoulders, but much more stands on that of Doty and Cam Smith. So people are going to have to be patient. The hopefully, is that weeks 1 and 2 will be kind to South Carolina, and they'll be able to get into this thing without having to face a make or break type game or a big time matchup, which would be Georgia in week 3, and give these guys a little bit more time to kind of get back to where they're fully healthy and ready to go.
This is also, and I just tweeted this out as well, I think this is the first sign of adversity we're seeing here for Shane Beamer. We're seeing the summer of Shane, as Keith Allsett put it, the talking season, all this positivity, all these good vibes, that it's been the endless talk of the offseason. Now we got a problem here. So how do they handle it? How has these weeks leading up to this prepared the team for this? You hoped adversity wasn't going to happen, and real adversity still can't happen until the actual season starts. You hoped it was down the line. You hoped you could stay healthy, but you're not. So now how does the team handle this? How does the team handle the fact that, what you said, it's not news to them that Luke Doty at this point was probably pretty solid at number 1. It's not news to them they got a stud running back who's hurt. It's not news to them that Cam Smith is. So they're aware that their leaders aren't available. So how do they handle this? And how does Beamer handle this? And what type of energy does Beamer give off as he's talking? Is it just, you saw a very different Beamer that you were just describing after the scrimmage. What's Beamer like coming through these practices? What's the message through these practices? That'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, if you take away what we saw on Zoom on Saturday, it tells you right there pretty quickly how he is handling this and how the team is handling this internally. And what he wants the message to be on the outside. I'll be honest with people, even though they might not want to listen to this if they're Carolina fans, it's very Dabo-ish on the outside. It's very Dabo-ish, which is we're a hell of a football team. Don't care what you say. They might go out there and be 4-8. And at the end of the year, that's the best 4-8 team in the country. And everybody laughs at stuff like that. And I am one of them. I always laugh when I hear crap like that. Oh, yeah, probably the best 4-8 team in the country. Best 5-7 team in the country. Yeah, who gives a crap? But that coaches like Dabo Swinney, and I'm not saying that Dabo and Shane are one and the same, because they're not. They're different people. I'm saying it's Dabo-ish. But guys like this new age a little bit of football, this new age of coaching, those messages are sent through the media, not for the fans. They're sent through the media for their football team, because what goes through the media gets back to their football team. It always works like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you hear coaches say things like that, yeah, we as fans chuckle and laugh and whatever. I can guarantee you, Darren, I guarantee you that if there was the Georgia fan base or the Clemson fan base or whomever has a rivalry with South Carolina, and they saw Shane Beamer, which they couldn't see him because he was on a private Zoom call, but saw the video on Saturday where he said, "That's all bullcrap. We have a hell of a football team." They are all like, they won 6 games in 2 years. This guy's delusional. It's the same stuff we thought about Dabo back in 2010. We all thought he was delusional. We didn't think he'd be there another year. Guys won 2 national championships. So, I mean, these are tactics that coaches use for the inside of their program, period, the end. And then their message will coincide with the team of, just like Steve Spurrier used to say, he could have had Joe Montana at quarterback in South Carolina, and Joe Montana's head falls off. And everybody says, "Oh my God, Joe Montana's head falls off. We don't have a quarterback." And you go, "Well, you can give the next guy a chance." It's that keeps people moving, not dwelling on these type of situations.
Yeah, and I got that impression with the overwhelming praise that he gave Jalen Brooks. It wasn't just, he's doing well. We know, we've heard the same thing, but the overwhelming praise, that was the same first impression I got from that was, okay, this is still part of the mentality of let's make sure these guys are in the right headspace heading into the season, because you're dead on. They want these sound bites. There are guys who coach up coaches for when they're having these appearances now, whether it's Zoom or press conferences. You coach up coaches to give one-liners that turn into headlines. That's people do that because it's not for the fan. They want the players who are all over social media. They want them to see that. They want to make sure that the message they're apparently giving out is what they're also trying to convey behind closed doors. But how does that message really play? And how does the team react when you're being fed this, everything is rosy, we got great guys as long as we work hard, when QB1, running back 1A, 1B, whatever, Cam Smith, Prunty leaves? How does the team take that message? You got to deliver it carefully if you're going to receive that one the right way, because it's easy to hear it and then look around, be like, what? So it's a delicate line to walk. I think it's in line with what Beamer's been doing. I expect him to walk it very well, but it's something worth watching.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And again, not to beat the dead horse, but coming into August, I think a lot of the optimism amongst the fan base outside of the team itself, they know much more about what's going on out there than we do. But a lot of the optimism was, well, we've got Kevin Harris, and if Luke Doty can play well, and we've got this Prunty kid now, freshman All-American, so our corner problem might be solved. Like some of the issues that South Carolina thought they had, all of a sudden started to it felt a little different when we turned the page to August. And now all of those are question marks again. So to your point a minute ago, yeah, this is the first real adversity check, at least on a public level. And they're going to have to deal with it and move on. Again, I'll point to something that's very, very simple. They don't have Kentucky. They don't have Georgia. They don't have Tennessee. They don't even have Vanderbilt in week 1. They have Eastern Illinois. This team should be able to win with the 4th string quarterback against Eastern Illinois. That's probably not the case at East Carolina necessarily, but I got news for everybody on that too. They shouldn't lose to East Carolina. Like they could. It might be a tricky game, but they shouldn't lose that game. So, I mean, and then it's Georgia. So, and more so than that, then it's Kentucky in week 4. Like those are the barometer games. So they'll ease into it. They still have some time, but they are certainly hitting the gas pedal on the rehab side of things up there in Columbia. We're going to get more on that and more on the Saturday scrimmage stuff from Wes Mitchell. He'll join us in about 6 minutes. There were some really good things that happened in that scrimmage for South Carolina, and maybe some of that got squashed a little bit by all the Doty news over the last 24, 48 hours or so. But we'll go much more in depth in that here in just a little bit. And then Perry Orth at 1:30.
Sorry to cut you off right there. Before we jump out of the Gamecocks, I do think it's important that Doty can play. It's important for the team that he can play against Eastern Illinois, whether he can or not, who knows, because of what you just said. While they should, as the team, win the game, regardless. I mean, if we play quarterback, should be able to win that football game. But I think for Doty, it's important to ease him in too, because Mike Houston's defense is going to be a lot stiffer. You should win that game. I mean, right? It's a Power 5 SEC team, right? You should, but that's a much harder defense than week one. And then you're into the SEC. So it benefits the team and it benefits Doty if he can get in there week one.
Yeah, and that's like a Super Bowl for East Carolina with the Gamecocks visiting Greenville as well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting atmosphere up there at Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium in Greenville. Dawn Staley continues negotiations with South Carolina. There have been some reports out there that they were close, and then there's another report that says, nah, they ain't on the same page as far as what the future looks like. Don't know much about it. The only thing I have gotten behind the curtain on this, if you want to call it that, is don't look too much into that. It's not like Ray Tanner and Dawn Staley are arguing back and forth or anything. These things happen. Both sides want something. Gamecock side certainly coming out of a pandemic. Dawn Staley has every right to ask for what she wants to ask for. Nonetheless, there should be a deal on this sometime soon, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And Dawn Staley will be fine on the sidelines at South Carolina coaching the ladies. We'll talk more about the Braves in a little while, but I'm not sure if anybody paid attention to what happened this weekend. They're in first place, and did they sweep the Nationals?
Oh yeah, just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little bit. Look, we're I guess we're the little brother of big league baseball right now. That's like a generous way of putting it. I mean, it's
tough year, man.
It's bad. You look out there. I'm not kidding. Yesterday, I look up because I wasn't doing everything I can. Normally, I can watch the Braves and Nationals. I just, there are ways you can do that. But I hadn't been this serious for obvious reasons. And I was at Dog and Duck, and I look up. I knew the game was on, so I was sort of watching it. And I had to Google the guy who was at the plate wearing a Nationals uniform. Like, who in the world is this guy? I'm a pretty big Nats fan. That's where we are.
Hey, look, the Braves almost didn't sweep that series if it wasn't for that play by Austin Riley.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was between him and Dansby Swanson. The Nats, they don't want to see them anymore. Dansby, I think he hit 4 home runs in 3 games.
Felt like every time I was looking at the box score, there were a bunch. From Fangraphs, I put this on this graphic here. It's important to note their odds, the Braves, now at 46.5% to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
A month ago, they were 8.5%. The Phillies a month ago were at 19%. They're still behind the Braves. They're at 40. The Mets have plummeted. It was like guaranteed the Mets a month ago today would win. They were 74%. The Mets are now 18%.
I mean, this is Braves are on a roll. They're on a roll. They've won 10 of 12. They swept the series in St. Louis. They've been playing their last 2 series on the road. They've swept at St. Louis, at Washington. I know the Nationals are struggling, but sweeping on the road in the big leagues is tough. And they did it. They've won 4 straight series going back to St. Louis. I mean, it's an impressive run right now for Atlanta, and they got to go to Miami starting tonight, and then they got to go to Baltimore, 2 very winnable series. But again, you're on the road, and then it's that New York. I mean, then it's gangbusters. New York, San Fran, L.A. Got to go to Colorado. I mean, that stretch is going to be really difficult. So, really important if you're a Braves fan to maybe they can win these next 2 series, go 4-2, and try to have a 2 or 3 game lead before they hit that tough little stretch there, and we'll see what happens. But great weekend for Atlanta. 1 game up now on the Philadelphia Phillies. Just unbelievable what's happened. But I tell you what, They'll still need to get some help in that bullpen if they want to go deep into the playoffs, because there's nothing special about the Braves pen, but offensively they've been banging it around, man. It's been awesome.
And the trade deadline guys have been playing well too. Peterson's playing well. Duvall's playing well. I mean,
yeah, he's comfortable in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
He just fits. It's unbelievable. They rebuilt the whole outfield. Crazy. All right, got to hit a timeout. When we return, we'll roll right up the road to Columbia, South Carolina. Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central will take a deep dive on the Doty situation and, of course, notes from the scrimmage this weekend. They have another scrimmage coming up this Saturday, so a lot of Gamecock football to get to. Hang tight. We'll be right back right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with zero down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike two.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per 1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with zero down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right, local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All three locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
You are listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
$12:32 on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Three dudes, no hats. Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central joins us now from Columbia, South Carolina. It is party time in the capital city. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, guys? How we doing?
You fired up and ready for PD to bring the heat on Friday? Apparently, Mark Bryan's going to play guitar for him, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm honestly ready for 8:30 to turn over the reins to someone else. I mean, I would be the happiest person in Columbia when the guy you see on your screen right now, if you're watching live, goes up there, because that will mean my part is done. It's all on Patrick from that point forward. The hay will be in the barn, and whatever happens from there is all on him. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Is there like a live auction, or what are you doing on stage that's making you nervous? Because you're obviously not nervous in front of a microphone.
No, I'm not nervous. It's just trying to put this thing together, and we have a pretty large list of former players that are going to be. We have this vision of this former player roundtable where and Preston Thorne, former Gamecock, he's actually going to be sort of emceeing that part of the event. And, it's going to be just guys telling stories, telling locker room stories, talking about their time at Carolina. But with anything like this, it's very hard to get everybody on the same schedule. And, you want to tell people early enough that you give them a heads up, but then y'all know how it is. I mean, I've done this before.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there. And, it's like 2 months ahead of time initially. And then, oh, well, actually, nah, I have something that day. So, you're trying to schedule enough people that the people that come out are going to get, like, it is a concert, but we want to have some other aspects as well. So that part is on me and Chris. And, I'm not a daggum wedding planner or anything. Like, I've never put together an event. I mean, you gotta make sure that there's tents. You got to make sure that there's wristbands. You got to make sure there's banners. It's been a learning experience. So I'm very excited for it to be here. We're still working through all the final little details, but ultimately, I just hope Gamecock Nation comes out because it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a good time. And again, everyone is invited. You don't have to be a Gamecock Central subscriber. You don't have to be a Gamecock Central even reader. Whatever way you follow your Gamecocks, come on out. Anyone that's a Gamecock, if you're a Clemson fan, you probably don't want to come out. You're not going to have a good time.
Oh, there will be one there. You know that.
There will be one. There will be just one.
There's always one. Always.
Yes.
Always.
There's always one. But yeah, it's going to be a good time. Hopefully everybody comes out and enjoys it. And I mean, y'all know PD will put on a great show as well.
Oh, he'll kill it. Yeah, he's all fired up. We had him on last week, and yeah, he's all fired up. But the token Tiger fan will be there. There's always the one jackass that shows up in the Deshaun Watson jersey, and you're like, dude, are you trying to start a problem? Because you know it's going to happen. So what are you doing? But anyways, we'll move on from that. All right, Wes, let's get to football. What you're throwing the party for. I kind of at the top of the program put up. I know there were some frustrated folks on Saturday, Wes, because the initial reports on Luke Doty turned out to be incorrect. But kind of put up a defense for everybody here because everybody had the exact same language on that. It was. I'm not getting too far in the weeds, but the initial report, and it was one source, and it was a credible source in the whole 9 yards. The good news is it's a sprain. So hopefully he'll be back sooner than later. Shane mentioned maybe by the first week, but I think a lot of us are probably thinking it'll be, as Shane said, quote, shortly after. But, kind of walk us through where they are now with Luke being out. You got Jason, you got Colton, and he mentioned that DeCarrion Joyner also working at quarterback.
Yeah, I think, injuries as much as we like to think of injuries being like this set in stone thing, it can be fluid sometimes when it comes to an injury. And I think as far as South Carolina, Luke Doty, as Beamer also said, they're going to start to the next couple of weeks at some point. He will start to actually be able to move around on it a little bit more, hopefully, and then it'll be reevaluated at that point. So it is kind of a fluid thing. And, I think that, that timetable that was given is what they're hoping for right now, that, week one, maybe, they use the word questionable, week two, possibly, I think it's one of those things where the information, as more information comes in, can continue to change. And I think that's what happened on Saturday. But yeah, as far as where they are, I think obviously Luke was the guy for a reason. He was the top guy. You don't want to lose Luke Doty. And I think part of Beamer's problem was just with the absolute freak out from part of the fan base about what it might mean. And I think you can acknowledge, okay, yes, you lose Luke Doty, that would be a loss, right? He's the starter for a reason. But I think Beamer, one of his biggest feats or biggest things to tackle, I should say, is not necessarily just changing the culture in the locker room, in the ops building. It's going to be, can you change the culture among the fan base? And but also, guys, it's not like it's just the South Carolina fan base. I mean, as Darren knows, I'm a huge Braves fan, first in the division, by the way. But following games on Twitter, it's the same deal. People these days just freak the out about everything. So that's a tough like I understand Beamer's frustration there, but that is also a tough that's a tough hill to climb. So we'll see if he can make progress though, and at least maybe dampening this idea of like, oh, here we go again. As far as the actual quarterback room, I think it's going to be one of those things where you're going to sort of, as the weeks go on, as we get closer, as you would have done if it was Doty as well, you start to focus the playbook in on the strengths of whatever whichever guy it is, So I think that would be key. If if it ends up being Jason Brown, I think probably you're going to have to lean a little bit more into the spread stuff, some of the stuff that he was probably really comfortable doing at St. Francis. If it's Colton Gauthier, I think you got to maybe simplify from there just because it's a true freshman. So, they'll be fine. I think especially game one, it really, really sets up nice now that you're playing a lesser team and that you're not getting ready for, like a North Carolina or somebody like that, like a couple of years ago.
Totally agree. It's it would be pretty devastating, I think, if they had a Charlotte game or something to kick off this season, but they don't. As you mentioned, it's Eastern Illinois, and if they had to play to carry on Joyner, they should probably still win that game. By the way, what did you think about that decision by Coach Beamer to announce that and it's, according to him, literally 3% of the time, but to announce that DK has been working some at QB?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I noticed him throwing passes in drills at practice on Friday. And I was like, that's interesting. He's warming his arm up. And then Beamer mentioned that on Saturday. I took that as he, because Beamer even said, hey, if we're playing you in the first couple of weeks, this is in the playbook. Yeah. I took it somewhat as like, hey, prepare for this. Like this is something we can do. Joyner's a starting wide receiver right now. If they were in 3 wides, Joyner would be a starting wide receiver. So I think it's one of those things where you probably, I think Joyner probably enjoys that. He's never been shy about the fact that he loves playing receiver, and he's always loved that, or playing quarterback. He's always loved that position. So I think it's a way to get his skill set involved, a way to give yourself another, maybe an emergency option down the road if it got to that. I still think with all the time he's put into finally being comfortable at wide receiver, you're not just going to blow that up. No. But yeah, I think it's nice to have in your pocket, right? It's nice to have available to you. It's something you work on, and you give teams something else to prepare for. I didn't take that. Somebody on Twitter was giving me crap because I said I didn't think they would move Joyner to quarterback. And then he sent me the quote from Beamer a day later, like, well, look at this. And I'm like, well, they didn't move him to quarterback. There's a difference between taking reps at quarterback and being moved out of your position to quarterback. He's going to be catching passes this year. Now, can you get some snaps for him at QB? Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I think that's something you should do. We also have to remember, if Luke misses time, Luke was their best runner at quarterback among those guys. Right. You maybe want to keep that element within your offense, and Joyner could give that to you.
12:43 on this Monday afternoon, West Mitchell, Gamecock Central. Totally agree. It's no different from Pharaoh Cooper and his role in the Spurrier offense. If you ask me, maybe a goal line situation here or there. I mean, that's going to depend on who else can play wide receiver. Who else can play wide receiver, Wes? What do you have from the scrimmage this weekend on that?
Yeah, Beamer's really high on Jalen Brooks. I think that's a good sign. We, and I'll say we as a collective, as a society, we're like very quick to give up on people. And Jalen Brooks dropped a couple passes last year, and we're like, well, man, this guy can't catch. And it's like, well, let's give the kid a chance. He really showed out preseason last year. Guys like J.C. Horn don't talk you up if you don't have some talent. And I remember when Jalen Brooks arrived and J.C. Horn being like, hey, that Brooks kid, I don't even think he knew his name yet. He's like, that Brooks kid, he's making plays. And so for Jalen to start to emerge and make some plays in practice and continue to do that, I think we have to remember also he was going from playing in front of what, like 10,000 people to playing
on a good day.
Yeah,
Oh,
to being on ESPN. I mean, it's and having all this pressure on you. It is that is as much of a physical transition as it is a mental thing as well to get used to that. I think so. I think Jalen Brooks he's gonna get a lot of opportunities this year. Josh Vann has had a good preseason. Can he put it all together? That next line, or Trey Smith got some good mentions from Beamer. Xavier Legette in practice this past week, I've heard, has made a couple plays for him. We've talked about it a ton, man. There are guys there. It's not like there's just not dudes in the room. There are guys there. Almost all of them were extremely accomplished high school football players that did some really good things at that level. And for whatever reason, be it injury, opportunity, or just not being ready, hadn't happened yet. And, Step has said time and time again, we've got a lot to prove. They've sort of taken that. I feel like that's like that group's mantra is we know we have a lot to prove. We want to go prove it. So we'll see. There's no shortage of options there. It'll be fun to see which guys can step up and just do the little part, right? Like you don't have to go make the spectacular play. I think for this group, it's going to be about catch the ball when you're open. Catch the ball when it's there.
Totally agree. Absolutely, Wes. I mean, if they could have just caught the ball last year, they probably would have won another game or two. They would have won the Tennessee game. I know that. So, I mean, it's absolutely, it's very simplifying the little things seemingly is, it almost seems like, well, that makes too much sense, but that's a lot of what this program has needed. And we'll kind of see how it works. So, we get the news that Prunty's leaving. Best wishes, thoughts and prayers with him. I know he's got a tough situation going on from what it sounds like with his family. Cam Smith is still out. Mentioned to Darren earlier, coming into August, you circled Cam Smith, you circled Luke Doty, you circled Kevin Harris, you circled Karan Prunty. And you're like, hey, if they're going to turn it around this year, and it's not just a turnaround of, winning 3 games, like they actually go out and maybe get bowl eligible, those guys are probably going to have to be pretty good. Well, none of them are practicing right now. 3 of them will be back, but none of them are practicing. And that includes basically your 2 starting corners in Karan Prunty and Cam Smith. Shane, though, seemingly very high on Marcellus Dial. Know he's a talented kid, Wes, but grasping the defense and those type of things, that all kind of has to come together. But what else have you learned about Marcellus Dial since he's been on campus and how he has progressed and improved here early in fall camp?
Yeah, when he first got here, that was the words. Like, man, this kid is super athletic. Just jumps off the page as far as having those measurables that you need to have to excel at that position. Now, in the spring, was like you said, he's still learning the position, still learning the defense, learning the scheme, everything that's required of him in this defense. But apparently, he's taken that step as far as being more comfortable in it. Some of that is just, hey, you're thrown into the fire. You have to learn it, and you have to come along quickly. And I think he's done that so far. So far in practice, it's been him and Darius Rush. Darius is kind of a forgotten guy a bit. Another kid that's just been banged up. I don't want to say his entire career, but just off and on for a good portion of his career. He was finally going to get to start in the bowl game last year, and the bowl game got canceled. But he had offseason shoulder surgery, missed all of, I think all the spring actually, as far as in game work, in practice work. So, he's a kid that I've always thought could be a good fit at that cornerback spot. And, again, to go back, kind of like what I was saying with Luke, both things can be right. Like, yes, South Carolina, you can't sit here and say they will not miss Karan Prunty. He was first on the depth chart day one as a transfer, as far as the open portion of practice anyway, for a reason, So, yes, you have to acknowledge that. The other side of it is, yes, it is an opportunity for other kids to step up. There's an opportunity for other kids to get out there, work with the first team unit, and show that they can help this football team. And that, to me, is how you build depth, because let's say Cam Smith is back. He starts game 1, and it's Cam and it's Marcellus Dial. All those first-team reps that a guy like Darius Rush is getting can only serve to help him. Because there are people that believe, this is a kid that's played receiver, then corner, then safety, then corner. He's gotten some extra work in the offseason with actually the DB trainer that J.C. Horn works with in Atlanta. The raw skill for Darius Rush has always been there. He's been one of those guys that played that musical chairs of just moved around all over the place his entire career. So we'll see if he can take advantage of this. I've heard he's as confident as he's ever been. And, he's a kid I always just liked as a person throughout the recruiting process. Great kid, great family. So, you like to see those guys get an opportunity.
Wes, the secondary conversation is really interesting to have because you have a guy like Darius Rush. I saw Craig, he just commented here a minute ago, and he's right. There's another one, Jamar Brown. He's been in the program. He's moved all over the place. R.J. Roderick's been here a long time. Obviously he's had some issues the last couple of years. Last year, he opts out and things like that as well. But he was struggling on the field. But he's a guy we know he's got talent. We've seen that. We saw it early in his career. You have what I've kind of called a blessing in disguise with Joey Hunter and O'Donnell Fortune, some of those guys who had the opportunity to play last year when all the opt-outs happened in the secondary. So it's not like they got a big group of dudes that have just never seen the field. And they've got a bunch of transfers in who have played football, not in the SEC, but yeah, they've played football at a level other than high school. So it seems to me like, is it a good situation? No. Is it a bad situation? Not necessarily, but it's more like a puzzle for Clayton White and Torian Gray and Coach Beamer and those guys to kind of fit the pieces and then let them just go play and kind of develop into themselves, really.
Yeah, I think it's just it's an unknown. It's a question. And it'll be a question until it's not. Much like that's what I would say about wide receiver as well. It's a question until those guys go do it in game situations. So, yeah, you got some guys there. I think the David Spalding kid has had a good camp from what I've heard so far at nickel. He and Carlin Platel are sort of your top two guys at that nickel spot. Safety, like you said, with R.J. Roderick, I think for him and all these guys, it's about putting them in the right position. Can R.J. Roderick do some really good things for you as a football player? Absolutely. Does R.J. necessarily need to be matched up with a Florida slot receiver one-on-one and left to have to play man coverage with this guy with no help? Speaking of a very specific play last year, probably not. So, I think it's just about taking the guys you have, like you said, putting the pieces of that puzzle together, understanding how the defense all sort of fits in together. And to me, it also goes back to that defensive front because, rush and cover, you hear defensive coordinators say those two words together.
No question.
The rush and the cover may seem like they're on completely different ends of the defense, but they are entirely connected. So if you can get to the quarterback a split second faster, the guys on the back end don't have to cover for that split second longer. So that's really an oversimplification, but I think sometimes we all forget that when you're watching a game, guy completes a pass, you're like, how is he so wide open? It's like, well, the quarterback had that long to stand there and wait for him to get open. So both sides of the defense, I think it goes back for me. I think everybody's pretty high on this defensive line, rightfully so, but they're going to have to really help out the other parts of the defense as they're working through it. Because I imagine the secondary, you're going to have some guys who get their opportunities. Then some guys I'm sure will step up. Some guys maybe don't. So then you put the next guy out there. There are bodies there. It's not like, in the spring, there was no depth at all in the secondary. Now you have some dudes. You're going to rotate them until you find the best five, and then you find your sixth, and then you find your seventh, and so on.
The rush side of this. So I think that a lot of folks in the Carolina fan base, as soon as Jordan Burch signed, well, certainly there were those who thought, well, he's going to start day one, which I think most of us didn't think that was true. Jadeveon Clowney didn't start day one at South Carolina. But we knew that at some point in time, Jordan Burch would probably be the guy up there. JJ Enagbare is seemingly that guy now. Aaron Sterling, though, I don't want to say that he was kind of bridging the gap because that wouldn't be fair to Aaron Sterling. He led the team in sacks a couple of years ago. But I think there was the thought, Wes, that as this season approached, that you would probably see JJ Enagbare and Jordan Birch opposite each other. It doesn't look like, though, that Aaron Sterling is willing to give up that other defensive end spot. There seems to be great pride in Aaron Sterling and locking that position down. So some people are wondering, was Jordan Birch not playing well enough to be a starter, or is Aaron Sterling just playing really, really well? Do you have that answer?
I can't say I completely have that answer without being out there, but I like the way you said it, though. It seems like Aaron Sterling, Beamer singled this guy out at the very beginning of fall camp. And he was asked, who has taken over as a leader, who had a great offseason in the summer workouts? Aaron Sterling was one of the first names out of his mouth. So, I think Aaron Sterling, he's one of those guys. Let's be honest. He's not 6'5". He wasn't a 5-star. He doesn't look flashy the way he doesn't grab our attention the way a Birch maybe does. But coaches love guys that just go about it every single day and do exactly what they expect from a technique standpoint, or right where they're supposed to be. And I'm not in any way saying, well, Jordan Birch isn't doing those things. I'm just saying Aaron Sterling, probably as a veteran that gets bragged on by his coaches the way he does, I would almost assure you is doing all those things. So I think it's a great, quote, problem to have. Like, we can't sit here and be like, well, there's no depth at this position, there's no depth at that position, and then someone get mad if Jordan Birch is not starting yet, because that means you have some depth at that spot. This is the way it's supposed to look. Right. It's like,
good point.
Don't get upset if you actually do have 4 guys who can play those 2 spots, because I think Jordan Strong is another guy. If Enagbare, Strong, Sterling, and Birch, that gives you 4 guys that you can rotate in, you can count on, you can get them all on the field at the same time if you want on some passing situations. Be thankful. If you're a South Carolina fan, that position, your tight end spot, your running back spot, if Kevin Harris, is healthy as suspected by the beginning of the season, you're like, okay, this is how it's supposed to look. It's some of the other spots that you're, be more worried about the other ones than that one. I think that's a spot that they should feel good about. Also, I do still think, as a whole, I want to see this defensive front stop the run a good bit better than they did last year before I'm ready to just ground the entire unit, because I know they're really good on paper. I know they're really good at getting to the quarterback, but South Carolina got pushed around in the run last year. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
Zaquandre White apparently had a pretty good weekend, Wes. We're hearing, we'll let you go on this note, though, but we're hearing, even with Kevin Harris out, Marshawn Lloyd working his way back in, he's going to be fine. We all know that. When they finally release an actual depth chart, wouldn't be shocked to see the the ever so popular 2021 or Kevin Harris or Marshawn Lloyd or Zaquandre White
or
Shot Amos. Yeah,
put Juju in there.
Juju,
Juju is the man, dude. This guy's going to be a fan favorite.
Yes, he is. No doubt.
Not very tall. That always helps you with the fans, right? Like, everybody loves an underdog.
Yeah, Bobby Wallace.
Yeah, super fast. Dude makes
his name.
I know everybody saw on Twitter the little edit there of the crying face running to the house. That was Juju. So
yeah, that's Juju.
You almost wish the kid could play some slot receiver, right?
I bet he might.
So you want him to have the ball in space if you can get it to him somehow, some way, because he's electric.
Wes, how long before on the video board somewhere along the lines do they have the Jujuke?
Oh,
NIL opportunity. Juju.
You know it's coming. Come on, we're not stupid, right? You know this is coming.
Yeah, I like that.
The Jujuke. Like he's probably gonna have a dance. Yeah, you're all over it, Darren. NIL's got it. He's gonna have the Jujuke.
He should trademark it. I love it.
I think we need to figure out a way to capitalize on this ourselves. We need to get a hold of this guy. Wes, put us in touch with Jujuke.
I can handle that.
I got an NIL idea. But you're right though. Fan favorite. It's written all over his name, and he reminds people of Ace Sanders. He reminds me more when I look at him, from a physicality standpoint. He reminds me more personally of Bobby Wallace, but he's quicker than Bobby was.
Yeah, and this kid is stout too, man. Like you wouldn't know. I can't remember his weight room numbers, but I remember when somebody told me this kid's he was squatting over 500 pounds, I think.
I guess when you're close to the ground,
it's like Darren Sproles-ish, right? I mean, he wasn't exactly tall. He was little. He could hide, and then he could fly.
That's one of the only positions in football where your height really, to a certain extent, does not matter. Like if you can do everything else, you're fine at running back. And so those guys are always fun. That position truly doesn't have just that top end depth. It has some depth all the way down and different skill sets as well. All those guys have different styles.
We've all got different styles, but you put us together, we can't be beat. Wes Mitchell, right here on the JB and Goldwater show. Are the VIP passes sold out?
There are still a few available.
Okay.
Last I checked, it was getting very close. So if you want to get them, they're available right now. By the time they're listening to this on the podcast later on and not live, I can't make any promises. But right now on Monday at 1 p.m., I actually just looked before we came on, and there are some still available.
Yeah, but they'll be gone. So it is. If you don't get a VIP pass, it is a free event, and it's going to be a banger of a time at Steel Hands Brewing coming up on Friday night. Patrick Davis and his Midnight Choir, though, minus Megan, his sister, will be playing. Mark Bryan from Hootie and the Blowfish is going to be joining them up there on stage. Wes can sign a football for you. Chris can sign a football for you. Colin will be there. Nobody knows what he's going to wear or what he's going to eat. He might bring his own dinosaur nuggets. Who knows? But he'll be there. It's going to be fun.
It will be a blast. I can.
That's what y'all should have done. You should have a dinosaur chicken nugget eating contest.
Oh,
who can beat Colin Taylor? You get a year free of Gamecock Central.
That would have been fun. We could have some former players involved. Can you imagine Mason Zandy out there just hammering
He'd eat the dinosaur. He could eat the dinosaur. We'll let you run. 2 o'clock today, GC Live?
2 o'clock today, yep. Plenty to talk about.
I bet there will be a lot going on. Tune in, 2 o'clock, 2 to 3, Wes and Chris. Thanks, buddy. Have a great week. I'll talk to you sometime this week, and but really looking forward to this weekend, and we're getting closer to the season.
No doubt. Appreciate it, guys. You have a good one.
Yes, sir. There you go, Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. All right, got to hit a timeout. Hour 1 is in the books. Perry Orth is still ahead. When we return in Alliance, maybe, in college football, we'll talk about that. There are some news and notes from the SEC, not good ones, to pass along pertaining to certain programs. The NFL preseason, how'd Trevor Lawrence do? You probably all saw it. We'll get into that a little bit as well. So much, much more to come. Hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risk their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston, Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. StonoFerryGolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Flamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
The Jujuk.
It's got a nice ring to it also.
You're going to catch.
It fits perfect. Honestly, I won't be surprised if it catches.
I'm telling you.
It makes too much sense.
Okay. We'll see. 106 on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com, providing all of your name, image, and likeness ideas here for the everyday low price of nothing, apparently. JB and Darren on Twitter at Sports Media JB, at Darren Goldwater, collectively at JB and Goldwaters, and JB and Goldwater Show.com. If you're going to go watch some of these football games this fall, you might want to be riding in something that can accommodate you, your family, and all your tailgate stuff. Or maybe you're like me and you got little kids, and it's not just about the tailgating stuff anymore. Now it's about bringing the Barbie car and bringing the puzzles and bringing 16 juice boxes and bringing 14 pouches of kale, apple, and chicken mixed together. And all this other crap that you never thought you'd see in your life. Yeah. You got to have something to put all that in. You know, the separate cooler for the kids. And it's going to be this Volkswagen Atlas that can fit it all at a great low price. StokesVW.com. They've got used models 2018 to 2021 that are beautiful, low on mileage. And at Stokes VW, you're going to get great service. I know that. Darren knows that. He's been buying cars from Mike Mazzell and those guys for years. And there's a reason why we partner with them, because they give the best service to our audience. StokesVW.com. They're going to drive us around this football season. We hope they'll drive you around this football season as well to any and every football game that you go, high school, college, pro, whatever it is. StokesVW.com. Thanks to Wes. Coming up at 1:30, it's Perry Orth, and we will certainly talk to him. He used to work with DeCarrion Joyner, for those that maybe don't know that. So we'll talk to him about DK and a lot of the QB stuff that's going on up there in Columbia, see what he's seen. I don't think he was at the scrimmage on Saturday, but certainly Perry will add some great insight. He's a former starting quarterback in the SEC. That generally kind of works itself out. Speaking of the SEC, Darren, around the SEC, Joey Gatewood leaving Kentucky. He's entered the transfer portal. Remember, he transferred to Kentucky from the Plains of Auburn. So this is another transfer for Joey Gatewood. Will Levin will get the start for the Wildcats up there.
Levis, former Penn Stater.
Yeah, what did I say?
Levin.
Oh, yeah, Will Levis will get the start. Yep, former Penn State kid. Apparently pretty good quarterback. It'll be
he's more of a runner than a thrower.
Right
at times he can throw. I mean, he's got an arm, but he's more valuable running. That's when he was able to move Penn State's offense the best.
Well, that's Kentucky. That seemingly is what Kentucky has become over the years. Terry Wilson, I could probably list a few other guys when I start really thinking about it. They kind of it's a heavy run offensive scheme, and they utilize the quarterback a lot. And so he's going to fit right in. And Joey Gatewood is going to depart. It will thin out the QB room a little bit for them. I think they've got some young, talented guys, but nobody who's played. Of course, Joey Gatewood hasn't played a ton either. Terry Wilson's not at Kentucky anymore either. He's left. So Levis will get the start. In Athens, some big news this offseason was Eric Gilbert almost transferring to Florida, then almost going back to LSU, the tight end, maybe the best tight end in the country, making the official move to Georgia. Now he's officially made the move off the field. He is dealing with some personal issues as well. No timetable on when he will return, or for that matter, if he will return to the Bulldogs football program. It seems like he'll be back, but according to Kirby Smart, they are just kind of supporting him and wishing him well. So, Darren, he was a guy. Georgia has become a trendy pick by some to make the playoff, by others to win the national championship, because they have taken in transfers in the last couple of years named JT Daniels, Darion Kendrick, Tyke Smith, Eric Gilbert. Big transfers, big name guys showing up via the transfer portal to Athens. And there's others out there as well, in addition to the talent that they have. And people, there was a lot of people that literally, Eric Gilbert transfers to Georgia and they go, well, they're going to win the national championship. Because a tight end transferred in, just hold the phones. Look, I get it. I know he can play. I know he's really good, but hold on a second here. But it does give them another option, there's no doubt, if Daniels can play well. So at the end of the day, we don't really know what's going on with this. You got the news last week that Jadon Hill, the best corner on Florida's roster, towards ACL. He's out. We've seen the problems here in Columbia. I would encourage Gamecock fans to remember this is not exclusive to South Carolina. These things happen all over the country, and they're happening at all of your border schools.
All over the place. The word out of Kentucky is Gatewood, who I think he was a 4-star or whatever, but I think that was obviously before he went to Auburn and transferred to Kentucky. I think the word was that Levis just straight beat him out. So he transferred. There's drama, right? They're 18, 20 some odd year old kids. There's drama. There's going to be drama. There are girls involved too. There's drama. You got 80 of them. They're kids. There's going to be drama. There's going to be bad news. In the term of Gilbert and Prunty, for them, you just wish them the best. Hope they get that stuff figured out, and whatever's best for them, they do.
Yeah, the Gatewood situations. I just don't know that he's that good. He
if Will Levis beat him out, he's not great.
Yeah, he had an opportunity when he transferred to Kentucky. It didn't work. Kind of sat around last year and watched it from the sidelines. Obviously lost this job. Didn't get the job at Auburn. That's why he left. I don't know that he stays in the league. He probably goes somewhere else. So we'll see. But I don't know that the impact on the Wildcats football program is huge by that. The Hill news at Florida is big news. That's big news. That's a secondary that struggled last year, and it wasn't necessarily because of Torian Gray. That was a kind of a top-down issue there. Todd Grantham, if you don't mesh well with him, it's proven over the years it doesn't work. He's still there. He threw everybody else under the bus. They're all gone. Todd Grantham's still there, so we'll kind of see what happens. The Gilbert stuff, what type of impact could that have on Georgia? I think that could be pretty significant, Darren. I do. If JT Daniels isn't what you hoped or thought he'd be, and you've got maybe the best tight end in the country joining your program, it's a hell of a safety valve. Even if JT Daniels what you hoped he would be, if he's everything and more, missing that type of pass catching tight end in this league to win a national championship, you need guys like that. So I think that's a big loss if he ultimately doesn't return.
You said it right when you first said, what, you tight end transfers in, now you're going to win the national championship. So the fact that you can, and fans were able to at least stretch their imagination that far, it does tell you how good he is. I mean, it does tell you how valuable he is and can be. We just saw what's Florida's type Pitts. We just saw how dominant a great tight end can be in the SEC. So, yeah, it matters. As a side note, JT Daniels, we saw him signing memorabilia like last week or 2 weeks ago. Today, right before the show, it came out. He signed an NIL deal for autographs and signatures, and he intends to pocket half and give half of his earnings across the rest of the Georgia team.
That's a deal that could maybe approach 7 figures from what I hear.
That's what it said. It's a lot of autographs.
Let's see. Gonna have a carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
He's signing that many autographs. You might want to be careful.
He signs with his left hand. I noticed that in the pictures.
Oh.
So he does it. He's not going to hurt his throwing shoulder.
Oh, okay.
So it's only going to be his non-throwing arm.
That's good news. All right. If you want to pass along a note like Craig, Clint, whoever else, you can do it. You can text us if you're out and about, 843-321-8893, or utilize whatever platform you're on, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Darren will make you a part of our show. So it looks like the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 are interested in forming some type of an alliance. It appears that this is centered around, at least the information that we have available at this point in time, more of a scheduling type deal, whether it's, some type of something similar to the ACC Big Ten Challenge in basketball, maybe nothing that official, but at least where teams would be contracted to schedule somebody from one of these leagues every year or every few years or whatever it may be. We don't really know what the details might be. I think that the fair question with all of this is, why? I mean, because yes, okay, so you need to combat the SEC's moves with something, but how does this do that? You're not bringing new members into your league or anything. It's not like they're forming some league. It's an alliance that again would be scheduled around scheduling and things like that, or centered around scheduling. So the more that I've looked into it, Darren, I've kind of come to realize it's certainly about the money. What they're trying to do, the SEC has a new agreement with ESPN and ABC, Disney, set to take place in a couple of few years. So they're trying to undercut some of that is what they're trying to do. And it certainly makes sense. And I wouldn't blame them for any of this at all. I mean, it would be pretty neat if Ohio State and Miami or Southern Cal and Clemson or something like that had some type of, primetime matchup. How are you going to keep that off of ABC on a Saturday night? So, I don't know what's in the Southeastern Conference's details of, future television rights agreements and things like that, but they're trying to undercut some of that. It's a pretty savvy move. I'm sure Greg Sankey expected something like this to happen. So we'll see what they counter with if they do. I don't, though. This isn't a move, in my opinion, that's going to affect anything that has to do with the Southeastern Conference. This is just something that they're trying to do to help themselves.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use the word undercut, because what they can't do is they can't go take the slice of the pie that's already taken. The SEC will renegotiate now that it has Oklahoma and Texas, but there isn't so much an alliance or really anyone can go undercut. What they can do is see if they can't come up and match them. See if they can't create some type of a level playing field. I'd encourage you, I'm about to reference an article in The Athletic. Andy Staples was behind it. Sure, this is financial. This is what's happening. This is why the SEC is growing. This is why Texas and Oklahoma left. All of it, right? A lot of television commentary when it comes to sports TV has been in the past focused on markets. That's what drove the last round of expansion. That's why the Big Ten added Rutgers in New York and Maryland for DC. And that's what drove that expansion. Now it's more about viewers, and it's not just about big markets. So this article in The Athletic lays out what's called the 4 million club, games that were viewed by at least 4 million people. Once you break it all down and take out some knick-knack behind the scenes stuff, there were 193 games last year between 15 and 19. He didn't use last year because it was just weird. So 193 examples over a 4 or 5 year stretch that got 4 million viewers. Of those, 55 were SEC versus SEC. 49 were Big Ten only. The ACC had 13, the Big 12 had 12, the Pac-12 had 5. So what they're trying to do now, and what the SEC has done by adding Texas and Oklahoma, they've added more of those games. And when you talk 4 million viewers, this is where the big dollars come from. That's why they're using this. This is where TV execs look and say, are these dollars worth it? Because can I go sell this ad and recoup this? If you're hitting that plateau, it matters. The teams that are doing it regularly are all SEC, Big Ten, Notre Dame, Clemson. That's it. So what they're going to do, if they team up, SEC adds a couple more. Can the Big Ten, by pitting a Michigan, Southern Cal, by doing a Clemson, Oregon, can the Big Ten add a couple more? Because keep in mind what's about to happen. The Big Ten, their media rights deal was a 6-year deal. It comes up next year. They can renegotiate first. If they can go approach TV execs and say, our club of most viewed games can now be in the neighborhood, and it's not far off anyway from the SEC. It's close. It's the only thing that rivals it. But now it's even in the neighborhood. Can they get money for their schools that can then value the deal or rival the deal that the SEC will give to its schools?
Makes all the sense in the world. My question to you, but you addressed it, was going to be, where was Clemson? Because you said there was 13 ACC only games, right?
Yes. Clemson had, what was their exact number? I want to say
most of them.
Yes. I want to say Clemson had 13 total games.
And these are regular season games, or these included the postseason?
Only regular season. Conference championships were not included. Bowl games not included. Playoff not included. So it's just the sample size of regular season games. Alabama's one. Then it's Ohio State and Michigan, just teams that have competed in these games. And then the whole thing is SEC, it's Big Ten. Clemson's on the list. Notre Dame's on the list. Oklahoma was the only non-SEC, Big Ten, or Clemson, Notre Dame.
But are there examples of games that were that were non-con?
Yes. So in his breakdown of 193 games over the 2015 to 2019, 58 of those games were either independent or cross-conference. So these matchups that say the alliance is discussing, 58 of those were cross-conference. The SEC had 55 SEC only. The Big Ten had 49 Big Ten only. Then the conferences just fall flat. So the viewership is there for the schools in the SEC, the schools in the Big Ten. Yeah. It's not there in the ACC, Big 12. And the Big 12 offers nothing anymore, what's left of them. So how compete for eyeballs is what it is.
How many of those games, you mentioned Oklahoma. What about Texas? Where were they in this?
Of the schools that appeared on the list at least 10 times in a 5-year stretch, Texas did not appear on the list. So I don't know how many times they appeared, but they were not at least 10 times.
It's very interesting. That's because
there was an article in The Athletic this morning, and it explains in simpler behind the scenes TV lingo. It explains it much more clearly of, okay, look, it's not just about let's go get New York and Chicago, the markets. It's about the fan base. It's about the passion. It's about who's watching. And I guess who's good. that matters too.
So it's a TV driven deal. If you're Clemson, like nothing has kept Clemson out of the playoff. Obviously the ACC hasn't. Dabo Swinney has, and if you go look at their future schedules, and is continuing to schedule top-notch non-con programs. We've talked about this a lot. And they have a lot of those in place. LSU, Georgia, obviously starting with this year again, but they've been playing Georgia a lot. A&M, I think Clemson has Oklahoma on the schedule somewhere. They have the tie-in to Notre Dame. So, if you're Clemson, specifically the only team from the ACC who has been going to the playoff. Florida State went in year one, but that was year one of the playoff. You almost have to wonder, okay, we get it. we know that there's a financial incentive here. We know that everybody needs to do something. But we already have all of these teams scheduled. I don't know if they would try to buy their way out of one of these games, but if you're Clemson, you have an 8-game ACC schedule. You have South Carolina at the end of the year. You've scheduled all these other SEC teams in Oklahoma and all these other years. They seemingly have scheduled one difficult opponent every year. And then if you had a scheduling alliance come out of this and all of a sudden it lands that they've got to take a trip to Washington, in addition to that, they're going, whoa, wait a second. We don't need it. I don't think Dabo's the type of guy to back down from any challenge. I'm not going down that road. All I'm saying is the league interest is going to supersede each individual team interest here, but you would probably think that there will be certain individual organizational interests who would fight back against some of this type language because they don't need it to get where they're going.
Yeah, it doesn't benefit everyone unilaterally when you come across the three conferences. It can't. There are just like the SEC, like Saban, yeah, cool. Let's go to 12-game SEC schedule. The rest of the league won't so much agree to that. But for Clemson, I do think it would benefit. I think it benefits everyone involved. I think it benefits Clemson too. Can they maneuver some of those pre-scheduled games? Probably. There's probably a way to do some of that. But when it comes to the dollars, you just don't want to get left behind. Are they in the playoffs? Yeah. Are they doing fine? Of course. Are they competitive on the national level? Absolutely. Of course they are. But wouldn't it be nice to be doing all that stuff and be making the same type of money that you're competing with? I'll leave with one more thought of alliances are tricky. And while these commissioners might be talking to each other, they've got each one of their member institutions talking to them. And who knows who's doing what behind the scenes. So I like the idea. It makes a lot of sense on the surface.
Yeah.
It's an idea. That's where it is right now. That's my thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like window shopping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you look through the window, you see something, you're like, yeah, but when it goes to time to actually walk in and buy that thing, that $400 Yeti, you're like, wait, I don't know. Is this really going to benefit me the way that I think it's going to benefit me? This is a little bit different because you're going to get hundreds of millions, billions of dollars out of something like this. But I think what's important to remember is in a scheduling alliance, this is obviously led by the best programs. Like on a national stage, I watch any football I can get my hands on, but I'm that guy. This isn't for that guy. This is for the guy that they need to get to watch football, or gal, or whomever it is. So like, if you're Joe Smith in Utah, they don't give a crap. I mean, Joe Smith in Utah, who's the very casual college football fan, doesn't give a crap if Rutgers and Wake Forest are going to play each other in a scheduling alliance. That doesn't matter. What would matter to them are the best teams in these leagues. Like, that's what this headlines: Southern Cal and Clemson, Michigan and Washington, which I think they're already playing this year or something like that. Ohio State and Oregon, which they're already doing. Those type of match, like, okay, those are and there can only be so many. I mean, it's not like they're going to play 2 and 3 games a year against each other. They're probably going to get one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only going to be so many of these games to go around. So it'll just be really interesting to see if that truly is like all they're after here, how they kind of figure this out and place it with everything else that's going on in football. Because again, it's not like the 14 teams from this league and the 12 teams from this league are going to make 12 or 6 or 7 must-watch ball games.
Mm-mm.
It's just not going to happen.
No, but it makes sense.
You'll get one.
Even when you say it that way, it makes sense. If you get a couple games a year, and then the Big Ten, instead of only getting 49 games between its conference members that were viewed by at least 4 million people, and that's what drives the numbers, that's what drives the finances, the big network finances. If you can get from 49 to, say, 52 or 53 over a 4 or 5 year stretch, if you can add 1 or 2 a year, so that when your TV rights deals come up, which is soon, like next year soon, and CBS doesn't have the SEC anymore soon, there's money out there to be had. So if they can go present it and say, look, I understand this TV deal is over here and it's valued this way. It should be valued this way. Now here's what we're going to present you, and it is equal to what we all agree should be valued at whatever $1 billion it is. So we're now valued at $1 billion. Pay us.
Well, and this is also if they have an alliance. For the large part here, it's going to cut out the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'll discourage scheduling games against the Southeastern Conference. Like if you were hoping that LSU and Wisconsin would schedule another game against each other, they played one a few years ago. Probably not going to get that. If you were hoping that Clemson would schedule a game with Auburn, probably not going to get it. Because and it's also probably like the Pac-12 already plays a 9-game league schedule.
So it's Big Ten.
And so, right, and the Big Ten. So then they're going to be adding this. You wonder how it would affect the way that they would schedule elsewhere and whom they would schedule against. It's crazy.
I mean,
are they trying to blackball the SEC? Like, hey, we're going to schedule all around you. You're not going to be able to play any of our teams.
There's one line of conjecture with some of that, but really think of it on a bigger picture. This is how I've been thinking of it when it all started, and I still do now. If there's a group that breaks away, and we can all pretty much agree at some point, whether it's the Power Five, there's going to be some power shift. So if it's the SEC at whatever it's going to be, let's say it's 16, what we know of it right now, then you've got Big Ten, ACC, Pac-12 all staying together. Everyone comes along for the ride. But now how we schedule is a little bit more competitive. So now the dollars are much more competitive. Who knows what else gets thrown into the mix? But then scheduling changes. If that group breaks away, scheduling changes. The playoff format changes. Everything changes. So I don't know if you can really squeeze them out that way.
What happens to the Big 12?
They're in big trouble because they don't have a team that is attractive from a dollar and cent standpoint to any of these bigger leagues. The Big Ten doesn't need them. The SEC doesn't need any of them.
Well,
The Pac-12 doesn't need them because it's not going to help drive dollars to them. The Big 12 was kind of left hanging.
I mean, unless these three leagues pick apart the Big 12 and then create a scheduling alliance, which could happen.
It could. It's unnecessary. Why bring in teams that aren't going to bring you value?
Well, I mean, yeah, and I mean, that's not entirely true, though, because Iowa State, in my opinion, would bring more value to the Big Ten than Maryland or Rutgers. I mean, they're ranked 7th in the country.
Now,
I mean,
but they're already there. Maryland and Rutgers are already there. So if this stays, it's a way to keep the conferences together. No more landscape changing.
I mean, those teams are going to go somewhere. I see. I'm having a really difficult time. And this is not. Don't get me wrong. This is not directed at you at all. I'm having a very difficult time with this national narrative, thinking that there is no value left in the teams that are in the Big 12. Like that's Texas Tech and TCU and Baylor do have a chunk of Texas. Like there is value there. Iowa State does. They have built themselves to have value. Kansas has some value during basketball season. I don't know if anybody's realized that or not, but Oklahoma State is a team that I feel like has value.
Our levels of value here are different. Is there value? Yeah. Are there passionate fans and history? And absolutely. Are there TV dollar value? No.
Yeah, but I mean, you're still gonna make money by expanding your league with some of those guys. Like if you said if and everybody have a different response to this, I get it. But if you asked some SEC fan today, hey, you can take Oklahoma State, but you got to get rid of somebody. Somebody's going to say, a lot of people are going to say Vanderbilt. A lot of people are going to say Arkansas. A lot of people are going to say South Carolina. A lot of people are going to say Mississippi State. Like that's where everybody's going to start with. Missouri, excuse me. Actually, people would start saying Missouri more than they say Carolina just because of where they are. But need I remind everybody, Oklahoma's way out there too. You know what I mean? Like I would be thrilled if West Virginia and Oklahoma State were a part of the SEC. Like I would be thrilled with that. I think they're great programs.
It'd be cool.
Yeah, I would love it. Like, I see a lot of value in that from a football standpoint. Somebody might not care about football, and they're like, add Kansas. The SEC needs Kansas in basketball.
And it's not
All depends on who you're talking to.
Right. As a fan, you're right. That would be cool. How cool would that be? You're bringing 2 more, names in. That's cool. But it's not going to drive ratings unless those teams are super good on that given year. It's not going to make you money. If anything, it could cost you money because then they're not bringing as much to the table, and then there's 2 more teams that have to split everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, they got a lot of kinks to work out in this deal. There's no doubt about that. All right, 1:34 on this Monday afternoon. Time for our final timeout of the day. When we return, former quarterback Perry Orth, he'll jump in and join us and be a part of the Luke Doty conversation right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with 0 down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump? Strike 2! If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with 0 down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right, local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All 3 locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on
What's
Clements
up,
Ferry
everybody? This is South Carolina singer-songwriter Patrick Davis, and I might live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but guess what? I can always keep up with the news back in South Carolina because I've got the JB and Goldwater Show. Thank you, JB and Darren, for being live, loud, and on air.
$1:37 on this Monday afternoon, final segment of what looks to be the start of a rainy week in the low country of South Carolina. JB, Darren, and Perry, that handsome married fella, former quarterback at South Carolina, and he's making QBs great all across the Palmetto State at QB1athletics.com. What's up, brother?
Nothing much, man. Thanks for having me on. It's a rainy Monday afternoon up here in Columbia as well, so I'm right there with you.
Well, that doesn't matter anymore, Perry. There was a day and time where you would have to get in your car and you'd have to drive from Williams-Brice Stadium up to the bubble, and then you'd have to ease your way through the girls hitting the tennis balls back and forth over there on the tennis court. And then if somebody was over in the cage, one of the softball players taking BP, and they had a softball that somehow broke through a net, they'd hit you in the head and you'd die. And so they don't have to do it.
To me.
And you had it happened to me too. I got hit in the head over there as well. It was a tennis ball. And you had a 50-yard field. That just certainly wasn't big enough. The AC barely worked. You had to walk up a hill to get in there. God knows nobody wants to do that. And now you don't have to do that anymore. You just go into the new indoor facility, and it's as comfortable as it's ever been. I mean, rain means nothing in Columbia. Heat doesn't matter. Practice inside.
Yep. No, it's a good deal. They got a good thing over there, man. I got to experience the indoor facility for a year and a half. But
place is so awesome.
Just out on the ops building, which once, Lord willing, one day, COVID, the Delta variant, and all the other things that have plagued this planet, when all that stuff can be resolved, I look forward to working out back over there at the facility and, utilizing the resources that they allow us former lettermen to do. So one day when our disease-ridden planet decides to give it a rest, we will be back and live over there.
Well, one day Luke Doty will be back and live over there as well. He's got a sprain in the foot, Perry, and so he's going to be out for a little while. We'll see if they can get him back before week 1. They're not going to rush that. We know it. And hopefully shortly afterwards. All right. So you were a quarterback, I think, for the Gamecocks, if I remember correctly. And I don't even know if I've got news which foot it is. Do you know which foot it is?
No, I don't. I don't know anything about it really, besides the reports that came out over the weekend. It's really unfortunate now, that we've had to go through, the Saturday that he was going to be out, didn't know how long. Then, we found out it's a sprain. We still don't really know how long, but sprain is a lot better than a broken foot.
Yeah.
We just, hopeful that for the young man, we hope that he can get back to full health and play to the capabilities of why he was brought in on scholarship to play. And, it's just unfortunate, man. It couldn't have happened to a better kid.
Yeah.
Kid just loves the game, is a great leader, from what I've heard. And I'm just hopeful that he can get back. We Lord knows we need it. We always need one of our better players on offense, and a guy with his capabilities, with his explosive athletic ability, surely he'd help our team in a big way. So, like Coach Beamer said, no doom and gloom. Next guy's up. Next guy's got to get ready to play. And, we don't know if Luke will be the answer, right? You never know until they play the games, and you never, one of the other kids could be the next superstar in the making, and you just got to get out there and play. I love the positivity and the energy in the building. That's what you need. People get hurt. It's football. It's a very violent game. So you got to build a team that's capable of withstanding a few bumps and bruises. And
that's right.
I just hope that our team isn't plagued with the injury bug like we've been over the last 3-4 years.
Yep. All right. So walk us through. I mean, this is going to sound like a silly, stupid question, but people they are interested in your answer. Believe me, as a quarterback, what's more difficult? If the right foot, the plant foot has an injury, if the front foot has an injury, do you work through those things a little bit differently? Can you play on one or the other sooner? What's that like?
I mean, I would prefer it be on his stepping foot that he steps to his target, not his plant foot, or his foot that he's using to drive, the football down the field on. So if he's a righty, we hope that it's his left foot, right? Obviously, you got to run with both your feet, so you're going to have some tenderness and pain regardless, but, you don't want to be constantly having to push and throw off of a foot that's kind of banged up. But at the same time, I mean, you got to drop back, you got to run around, you got to bounce around. So hopefully they'll be able to get him back. I mean, the biggest thing in my experience with feet, ankles, calves, any leg injury, the less you do on it, the quicker it heals, right? So you don't need to be, walking around doing anything stupid. It needs to be in a walking boot, if anything, maybe even a cast. I don't know how they want to handle that, but the least that you can do, better off you'll be. So I know that Luke is going to be diligent in his recovery each and every day. So now we just got to let the good Lord do what he does.
All right, Perry. So Jason Brown, Colton Gauthier, one of them will probably start game one if Luke's not able to go. At least that's where it's trending right now. But Shane on Saturday did also say in his press conference that they have worked DeCarrion back at QB some, and he basically said, you got to go ahead and put everybody on notice, just so there's no message board chatter and other teams. You can go ahead and write that down. We've been working him at QB a little bit, which according to Shane is 3% of the time. He said 97% of his time is spent at wide receiver. So you know DeCarrion very well. I know you've worked with him in the past. You know him as a person. You know him as a player. He is a wide receiver. Nobody is moving to DeCarrion Joyner back to quarterback, but he's a guy who's capable of playing there in a pinch. What value do you see, Perry, in DK at the QB position? And what I'm asking you to answer here is encompass everything that you can. There was a time when Pharaoh Cooper would come in and play some wildcat type quarterback stuff for Coach Spurrier. From a depth chart standpoint, just kind of bring all of that into the conversation and explain his value now in that room.
Well, yeah, I mean, whenever you have an athlete like that, same thing why people were so high on Luke Doty. When you have the ability to run the quarterback, you make the defense play 11 on 11 football, right? But when you hand it off to a running back, quarterback goes out of the play. Now it's 11 on 10, So that right there provides a huge advantage. He's obviously special with the football in his hand, which would help if he was ever thrust into having to play quarterback. He has the ability to throw the football. So, there's a lot you can do with a guy like DeCarrion. Obviously he's still going to be a receiver, but, like you said, if you get in a pinch, he's a guy who can step in, who's got command. He's been in the program now 4 years, which is crazy to think about. So yeah, he's there. He's ready to be used. He's ready to be played. And, it sounds like his attitude is team first. I want to help the team in any way that I can. And, on a selfish note for him, he should be wanting to do that because that just makes him all the more valuable at the next level. If it ever boils down to DeCarrion, we'll be okay. Then I'm sure they'd put in a package for them to run heavy, and you start running heavy, the defense has to bring another guy down into the box, and you're playing with, one high safety, you're limited to only so many coverages, right? They have to bring another hat in to stop the run. It makes it easy on the pass game and take shots down the field and do some different RPO stuff. And, you just got to be creative, right? You don't just implement an offense and say, all right, well, our players have to mold to the offense that we run. No, it's the exact opposite, is that your offense should mold to the personnel of your team. So I know they know that. That's why I'm so excited for this staff. They're not old and stuck in their ways. They're young guys that are trying to prove themselves. They'll be fine. They'll be good to go. Kind of funny too, just to keep going on with that thought. I don't know what you guys have heard from the scrimmage on Saturday, but just from some reports, it's been funny. I've heard or read that we didn't have a good day and blah blah blah. But let me tell you, in all of my years of playing football and coaching football, I've never ever have seen an offense do well in the very first scrimmage ever. Defense is always ahead. Offense is still getting in a rhythm. People aren't used to doing full live contact, and it's just a different ballgame. Second scrimmage, they'll come out, and I guarantee you they'll be 10 times better. I watched it this past week at AC Flora. First scrimmage we had was Wednesday. By Friday, we were rocking and rolling. But, buddy, let me tell you, Wednesday was a nightmare. So if there were any rumors about the type of production, whether the scrimmage was good or not, do not look into it, because things change very, very quickly.
Describe that change, Perry. How do you said you've never seen an offense in all of your time in football, playing, coaching, whatever, have a good scrimmage, the first scrimmage, and then second scrimmage, it generally changes. I remember, it's funny you say this, because I remember Coach Spurrier used to say the same thing at South Carolina. And then this is, the offense, stunk it up out there. And then after week 2, well, the offense was better this week. Why is that?
Yeah.
What changes? Walk us through that.
Yeah, offense is an art, man. It takes time. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that have to come together for things to run smoothly. And defense, a lot of times, there's more complexity than just lining up and playing football, but a lot of times it can be that simple. You could have a great play call set up, but your offensive line isn't used to blocking a defensive line that's going full tilt. Your ball carriers are not used to getting brought to the ground. Receivers, same kind of thing, right? Offense, there's generally more rules than defense. So there's more to remember. Kids, will forget plays, will run the wrong routes, will miss assignments. And so it can cause hurdles for an offense, especially when you're only in week one, because you're doing so much install, right? Where defenses, you have different plays and different installation periods, but I just don't see it being as complex and there being as much info for a defense to decipher as much as an offense. So for whatever reason, it just has always been that way.
Perry Orth, 150 on this Monday afternoon. All right, so where are they in camp, Perry? We're 19 days out from game one, so under 3 weeks. One scrimmage is under the belt. I know that you've never played for Shane Beamer. I get that. I guess everybody's does some things a little bit different, but generally, where are you in camp after a little over a week and some change? And when do you start getting into like the week one install and things like that?
Yeah, you typically about 10 days out prior to the first game before you start doing install. You're still in installation phase as far as just getting guys back acclimated to playing football. As a staff, you're probably well aware of the guys that you think are going to be your starters, but you don't want to make a full decision yet because kids can still kind of turn it on after the fact. After that first week, you start really getting a gauge of, who are the guys that you're initially rocking with to start the year, whether it's at QB, receiver, DL, OL, it doesn't matter. Then after this week of practice, you'll have one more scrimmage, and then you'll start getting ready for game one, right? You'll start breaking down film, start doing scout team. You'll start watching the film as a position group for the opponent, maybe some other opponents, just kind of getting back into that rhythm of game week preparation. So typically it's about a 10-day period. So if you said we're 19 days out, they'll do one more full week of camp styled practice, and then they'll dive right into game prep.
How much do they I don't really know how to phrase this here, Perry, because I know that coaches don't encourage their team to look ahead, but how much of what they're doing in camp right now is doing it with East Carolina or Georgia or Kentucky in mind?
Yeah, they may spend a day or two during this camp period to look through it, but they're not going to spend a whole lot of time. I guarantee you the week of what is it, Southeast Illinois, is that it?
Eastern Illinois, yeah. I say Southern Illinois all the time.
Are we playing the Mud Dogs and Bobby Boucher one? Or
I hope we're not playing Bobby Boucher because we are screwed if we do.
But no, so we'll start prepping them, and I guarantee you for the first game of this coach's tenure, we're not, this coaching staff, we're not going to be looking ahead. We're going to secure a win and get that confidence before we start looking ahead to anybody else.
Mm-hmm. So, Shane has mentioned, Perry, that coming out of this was on Saturday, he mentioned on the in the press conference, coming out of spring, to carry on, Josh Vann, Jalen Brooks were probably the top three wide receivers. He said basically nothing has changed. Those are probably still the top three guys. And asked about, who's kind of been the deep threat. And he said Jalen Brooks, and Jalen Brooks. He said he's been the guy who's been able to run out there and go get it. They all obviously had their struggles last year, but that year's behind us. So as when you were at South Carolina, and with what about college football, generally what is comfortable? Look, I know you'd like to say, well, we have 9 wide receivers. They're all good. And maybe some teams do, like Bama and Oklahoma, I guess. Clemson seemingly has that every year as well. But, for the large majority of college football teams, Perry, what is a comfortable number for your offense? Maybe kind of a stupid question, but if you feel pretty good about 2 or 3 guys to start the season, how does that generally project? Don't guys usually kind of play their way into the mix? So what's a good number of reliable options for an offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, at receiver specifically, we've got 2 tight ends that can play. So for our team, we'd like to say 3, and then let the other kids behind them play themselves into the rotation, right? I mean, so much can change. Kids could get healthy. Kids could really, may take longer to get a grip on the offense, whatever the case may be. So you'd like to rock with 3 receivers that have a pretty good grip, that when you roll out game 1 and, you want to go 11 personnel, 1 back, 1 tight end, we're capable of executing at a high level. And then, if they make a big play, another guy can come in and at least hold that position until the other, the other receiver has regrouped and is ready to get back out there.
Do me a quick favor, final minute or 2 with you, and then we'll let you run. I think you mentioned 11 personnel. People, you start to see this more. You hear 21 personnel and 12 personnel and this, that, and the other. And there's people out there that think that they know what they mean when they, we're in 21 personnel. And you go, oh, no, we're not. What is it? Explain when you hear those numbers, explain how you identify what that means.
Yeah, so 11 personnel is 1 running back, 1 tight end, right? So if we were in 21 personnel, there would be 2 running backs, 1 tight end. If you're 12 personnel, you're 1 back, 2 tight ends. So the running back, total amount of running backs on the field, that number goes first. Total number of tight ends on the field goes second. So if you have 2 running backs and 2 tight ends, and you're in like goal line formation, that would be 22 personnel. That's a lot of offensive coordinators call their offense. They'll say, all right, 11 personnel, because they're going to go, that alerts, hey, tight end, get in the game, or hey, one of the tight ends come out of the game. We're going to call a play in this formation.
So based on what we have to work with at South Carolina, we know they've got a lot of running backs and tight ends that they like. Have you ever seen an offense in 33 personnel?
I was going to go 27.
No, I don't think I have. But I tell you, I would expect our guys, seriously, I would expect South Carolina to be a lot
22.
A lot of 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. Whether they're on separate sides of the line of scrimmage or they're both kind of in a hit position. So there's a lot you can do when you're in 12 personnel. And if you do it well, teams have to get into a base defense. And when you get defenses into a base, quote unquote, base defense, they're easily identifiable as far as coverage identification and fronts and where people are lining up. And if you can exploit that, you're in high cotton. So I hope that we're able to run the ball well out of 12 personnel. That will help our pass game incredibly.
Part of our job here, Perry, is to educate the fans in the stands who throw bottles on the field when they don't know why they're throwing bottles on the field. So we certainly appreciate that.
There you go.
QB1athletics.com if you want to train a quarterback, or if you need a quarterback trained. Maybe it's your son, maybe it's your nephew, maybe it's your neighbor, maybe it's whomever. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's you. Maybe you want to be Uncle Rico. QB1athletics.com. Perry can get you there. And if you're in the low country, Bailey Hart can get you there. Steven comes up often, works with QBs. Just go check him out at QB1athletics.com. All the information and much, much more. Hey, real quick, Perry, it is National Joke Day. I have a joke for you, okay? You could take this into the office. You ready?
Thanks. Yeah.
Why do we tell actors to, quote, break a leg?
No idea.
Because every movie has a cast.
Got
it. I like it. I'm gonna use that right now.
Here you go. I'm giving
hop on a conference call.
There you go.
hold the lines.
Open instead with, what do you call cheese that's not your own? Nacho cheese.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
I think that's cue for me.
Later,
Perry. Thanks, man. See ya. There you go. Perry Orth, former quarterback at South Carolina. Much more where that came from. Every day should be National Joke Day. Maybe it will be. Maybe we just need to tell a joke a day around here.
Well, I'm kind of out. That's my joke. What do you call cheese that's not your own? That's about the end of the line.
Everybody knows that joke.
It's okay. It's funny. It's good to know that joke.
It's funny to the people that think that they're telling it for the first time. That's what is funny.
That's why it's always funny to me.
It's also National Roller Coaster Day, and I don't like those. So y'all can celebrate that. Not a roller coaster guy.
Love it.
I think the last roller coaster I went on was the Teacups. Is that a roller coaster?
And moves around pretty quick.
Not for me. Thanks to Perry and Wes and all of you. Thanks to Darren, as always. Rain, go away. Come next year. My yard still has plenty from 2 weeks ago. We are back tomorrow. Mike Morgan and Gene Sapikoff will join us. Until then, have a marvelous Monday afternoon, and we'll see you at noon tomorrow on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.